Fun one. So we're coming to you from our broadcast studios here at the Paul household, getting ready to move from Owasso, Oklahoma to Ada, Oklahoma. So we're in a bit of transition. So I apologize for any technical difficulties that we might have or anything like that over the course of this podcast. This one's going to be fun because we're going to talk about medical marijuana here in Oklahoma. Um, we're going to name some names. We'll do that at the end because I want to kind of hold some suspense. But we're going to talk about the history of this in Oklahoma because I think it's important and it's unique. You know, it's unique in how marijuana has happened across the country. So and again, I'm part of that history. So I'll try to do this in as non-ego way, I guess, as possible, or non-arrogant way as possible. But you know, my wife has obviously been a big part of that too. But I want to tell that story at the end of this, and because there's names, you know, that come up here in Oklahoma all the time. So I want to give you some reference for some of that, just give you some history. But first of all, I want to talk about why medical marijuana is so. And at the end, by the way, let's talk about what we need to do, at least here in Oklahoma. So if you're paying attention to this show, I know we have a lot of Texas folks who watch this show. What we've done here in Oklahoma is very unique as to medical marijuana, and we lead the nation. We don't always think we do, but we do, and our regulators will tell you that. You know, the people on the inside will kind of tell you that. Even though it looks like the wild, wild west here, we have a lot of advantages, and so you know, we've done it somewhat right here in Oklahoma. And again, I want to talk about who's doing that and why, you know, who those people are. Because I think that that's important, that you just understand, you know, in cannabis, in the marijuana industry, there's a lot of flash and people, you know, come at you with a lot of pizzazz, and, you know, that looks good to a lot of us right off. And, you know, I'm old, I've had some maturity, so I've been burned a few times. But, you know, again, you guys just need to know the history. But first of all, we're going to talk about this really from a scientific perspective, okay? So why is medical marijuana important? Well, I want to point out some things to you, okay? So I just want to point out some things about science and discovery and what's going on, you know, because we don't think about these things a lot of times. Well, for the most part, the benefits, let's say, of medical marijuana were beginning to be discovered in the 1900s, right at 1900 at Cambridge University. So they were experimenting with something called red oil. Please don't try to make it at home. It's made with ether. You'll blow yourself up. But they were experimenting with red oil. You know, the first they'd actually synthesized, or not synthesized, I guess they had isolated, let's say it that way, the first cannabis molecule called CBN. So believe it or not, CBN was the first guy characterized, you know, in the cannabis plant through laboratory study of medical marijuana. But that happened at Cambridge University in the 1900s. You know, that went away, that somebody blew themselves up, killed themselves in a lab making red oil with ether. Don't do that at home. And so they shut all that down. Fast forward to 1940, had a guy named Roger Adams. Adams fully characterized cannabis, so he's the discoverer of THC, CBD, CBN, CBG. He's also the guy that weaponized cannabis. Again, he did this being paid by the federal government. So, you know, our federal government, sadly, is a very evil player in this whole story. The pharmaceutical industry is a very evil player in even current politics, and we'll get to that, but I just want to kind of lay some groundwork. You know, there's people here who, well, I'll get to that. So anyway, but, you know, so you have this characterization of cannabis, at least as a medicine, for all the minor cannabinoids for the most part, you know, and we're still discovering these weird ones, you know, WTZ34 or whatever the hell, right? But, you know, for the most part, let's say the major minors were discovered in the 40s by Roger Adams. But then the government, the U.S. military in particular, U.S. defense and military let's say, stepped in and decided to contract with Roger Adams to weaponize THC. And so Roger Adams developed something called THCO acetate, which was the first weaponized version of cannabis. Again, the fact that that's in the marketplace is no bueno, boys and girls. That is a weaponized version of cannabis. And again, you can make it stronger too. I'm not going to tell you how, but you can. Roger Adams could have told you to. But anyway, so, all this has happened. So that, what I want to say, and then, sort of a lot of stuff happened in the 50s too, with medical marijuana that's not really talked about. So do you think they stopped? The U.S. government was researching it. They found out it was really unique. They actually tried it in the MK Ultra program. So if you want to learn about that, there's been some declassified CIA documents, but they were trying to make, Marilyn Monroe sex slaves, and they were trying to make super soldiers and all that kind of stuff where they could, manipulate your mind. But they tried all kinds of drugs to do that. But one of the drugs that they tried was marijuana, cannabis, however you want to look at it, medical marijuana. And guess what? That drug made you almost impervious. So meaning they could not MK Ultra you. So that's interesting just in and of itself. So I would think that that is going to be further studied by those 3-letter agencies that study those things. So, but you kind of fast forward to 1964 as far as documented research. And then you have the Israelis, picking up all their stuff. Okay. So, and the Israelis were finding lots of health benefits in, the 60s. With your money, by the way, you paid for the Israeli research. The NIH did. If you think Dr. Meshulam is some champion of cannabis, yeah, you might want to educate yourself a little bit more. Again, that's been done with your money. You don't have any of that research, and that research has been slow played since 1964. So if you think that fella is some champion of cannabis science, call me. I'll give you the facts, because that's not truth. That is not truth. His name's on a lot of papers. Again, in 1994, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, a lot of discoveries were made. Again, all this stuff, that's 30 years ago. We discovered anandamide, endogenous, internal cannabinoids. Meshulam's on that one too. Okay? Where's that science? Are you telling me that if here's what this science says. We discovered a whole new regulatory system, not just inside of humans, inside of mammals, not just inside of mammals, inside of all life except insects. We discovered a new regulatory system that's ubiquitous to all life on the planet except insects. Wouldn't you think that would have been an alarm bell? Wouldn't you think that millions, billions of dollars would have been directed into research at that very moment? We've discovered that there's something that sits above your central nervous system, is basically what they're saying. It regulates the central nervous system. Why wasn't it an all hands on deck call? Why wasn't every university, every scientist, billions of dollars tasked with understanding this very important and critical system? Meshulam discovered it in 1992. Anandamide. They made further discoveries in 2000s. But these are private studies. These aren't, some of them are. NIH did some of them with your money. With your money. Okay? So some of these studies you paid for with your tax dollars. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is, why isn't the endocannabinoid system, first of all, the number one researched and studied system in the world? I want you to really think about that, because it's the most important system in your body, or it's, top 5, let's say. So you'd think pharma would want to study it and medicine would want to study it, right? They don't. They haven't. How many universities are researching, with medical marijuana? I mean, very few. It's so hard to do. How many federal dollars? Well, I'll tell you my own personal experience. Okay, so I work with a major university, I work with work with a major university. You work with PhDs at a university, and you may have the tech transfer office involved. So that's kind of my relationship here. And that's, the way it works. I really work with a PhD at a major university. The university's not involved directly in what we do unless there's technology transfer, like intellectual property transfer. But anyway, we have a grant, a very important grant that we wrote. We wrote during COVID. We submitted the pitch to the National Science Foundation. We got our pitch accepted, which means that, if you're on the the NIH side, it means your grant got scored. So that's good. We're in the top, 80%. In NSF, they do that first, and then you finish your grant. So we're in the process of finishing our grant. We miss our deadline, so we resubmit our pitch, and they said, same pitch? They said, no, we don't want you to study the endocannabinoid system. In fact, and I got somebody on the phone. I have this in writing. We are not granting any research dollars for endocannabinoid research. National Science Foundation. I'll bet we're sending some to Israel, though, for study. I didn't ask that question. Are we sending any NSF funds to Israel to Dr. Meshulam for study? So that probably would have been a yes. But anyway, you can't get any, and I can't get any to go study the endocannabinoid system under federal grant. Yeah. It's the most important system in your body. It's more important than your central nervous system. It's more important than your pituitary axis. It controls your pituitary axis. Yeah. So what's going on here? What's going on? I'm a researcher. I don't work with rats and mice. I don't have my own lab. I mean, I have a food lab where I put together things that I kind of try on people, willing people, right? And again, you should do that scientifically under IRB, so I'm being flip about that. But we have natural products that we make that are safe based on formulations that I build, based on my knowledge, that, seem to work. People report that they work, but they're based on safe things. So we don't need the same structures that we would in pharma. But anyway, and that's why I say, I build things and they work, but I build things under assumption that they're going to work, and they do, which is always cool. But that's because of knowledge about the endocannabinoid system. So I know how this system works, and I know its importance as let's say, a drug development target. And, I know a lot about pharmacology. If you're a pharmacist, call me. I'm happy to go toe to toe with you, my friend. But, and I'm self-taught, so I don't know potentially the words, but I certainly know the concepts. But anyway, everything that I'm seeing, again, and I read a lot. That's what I do. So I'm a forensic researcher, meaning I read a bunch of studies. And I use those studies and apply them to my theory, or our theory, the new pharma theory of human function. So do I validate that theory, or, do I, nix that theory? And so that theory, extends and extends and extends. But anyway, that's what I do, right? So I just read really other people's actual lab results and lab tests and what they're doing and the structures of their experiments and all that kind of stuff. But what's apparent to me is that we know the importance of the endocannabinoid system at some level because, again, I read studies about it and it indicates the importance. So why isn't this everywhere? Why isn't it in the mainstream? Well, this is where we get to the kicker. And I think that we've all kind of figured this out is the pharma business model and the medicine business model in our best interest? Is it? I mean, is it really there to help you? Or is it there just to sort of fix you and take money from you? And I would argue that it's a super good business model, right? And certainly if I've got my friends in the processed food industry over here that, will feed you things that are going to make you sick, and then I can turn around and make you better. So that's a good business, right? So that's a good business model. It doesn't really suit a business model to have it turned on its ear where you have the power. Okay? So if I give you knowledge about the endocannabinoid system, or I illustrate the importance of the endocannabinoid system, I'm taking away juice from an existing business model, and I'm focusing it back on you and really your relationship with God, because you have the power to heal yourself. You always have, and you might need nature to do that, but again, that's just an expression of God. So we've always, always, always had the power to heal ourselves. We just need the knowledge of what's important and what's not. Well, do you think pharma wants you to know that? They don't. They don't want you to know that. In fact, they may be batting for the other team, my friends. And, I won't even go there. It doesn't really matter. But it's obvious that they are an impediment to your knowledge and understanding of how you really work. Because when I teach you that, or anybody teaches you that, it doesn't have to be me, when somebody really teaches you the truth about how you work, and it's pretty easy to teach you that, it breaks their model. It gives you the power back. Okay? So, why is medical marijuana important? It breaks pharma. It breaks pharma. It might not break it now. It might not break it tomorrow. But it'll break pharma, because medical marijuana has given us our power back. And as we have power over our health, and we keep listening to them over there that tell us that, again, medical marijuana is bad. Oh, it's horrible. It's reefer madness. Oh, it's your kids will lose brain cells. Blah, 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 right? They just glow more. You're supporting a dead business model, my friends. This is the new one. Get on the God paradigm, because this is what's coming. Because again, you have the power to heal yourself. Okay? You might, I can make it easier for you. I can build you supplements, and we might have a business around that. But again, I'm going to teach you how to do this because it's important. It's important. So, but anyway, medical marijuana opens our minds, right? So if you just think about here in Oklahoma, and again, we've done it different here in Oklahoma. Can't wait to get to the name telling part. It's coming. But we've done it different here in Oklahoma, right? So it's an open program. You have, I would guess, every citizen in Oklahoma has been touched in some way. Some of it might have been negative, but the vast majority, 90% of us, let's say in Oklahoma, have been touched in some way positively by medical marijuana since the program got enacted in 2018. So, good luck trying to come to Oklahoma and change things, right? So we kind of get it here. And again, we're getting smarter about our politics, this is a good transition to kind of help me transition to the next phase of this. But people in Oklahoma have been helped by this. And if they haven't been helped directly, somebody they love has been helped. Somebody in their congregation has been helped. Somebody that they know at work has been helped. Some at school, wherever, somebody has been helped by this that they know. And they'll have a story about it. That's why medical marijuana is important, because it opens our minds. Now, again, 90%, were those 90%, they pulled the lever for yes on SQ 788 when we voted this in 2018? Not all of them. Not all of them. So the dam has broken here in Oklahoma. That is a great thing. As this happens in other states, and again, most states have 4%. Rec states are different. So rec states are kind of wide open, and you do have a lot of medical patients being helped with marijuana in rec states. They're just paying a higher premium for the most part, in those rec states, paying higher taxes. The medical states, the maxed out, states are at 4% of their population. We're at we hover right around 10% here in Oklahoma. So 250% increase here in Oklahoma. Why? Because it's an open program. We have marijuana readily available in our dispensaries because it's open. It's open free market on the commercial side, and it's open to all patients on the patient side. You don't need a medical condition here in Oklahoma to get a card. Everybody argues it's recreational marijuana. I mean, in a way it is, but I would argue that everyone who smokes marijuana is being helped by it. So go have fun. It's going to help you. Just don't drive. Okay, so let's talk about Oklahoma because, if we as activists and kind of knowing what this needs to be and, potentially, and I'm not saying, I know or anybody else knows, but collectively, we know what this needs to be and how to kind of get this right. We've done a lot of that here in Oklahoma. And we have the ability to do a lot more of that here in Oklahoma. So if you are in Oklahoma, I would encourage you to listen to organizations like ORCA. So Jed Green, who leads ORCA, that is a very good, and again, I'm going to name names and tell tales, so Jed's name will come up again, but you'll kind of understand Jed's place in the history here in Oklahoma. And his role really now and the power that he brings over, let's say, somebody leading this, somebody kind of needs to lead this here in Oklahoma, at least on the activist kind of, who's going to coordinate between activism, commercial industry and regulators? Well, somebody needs to, right? And Jed is almost the perfect guy to do that. And he really is doing that right now. He's not being paid. No one's paying to do him that. And that's kind of sad. We should pay him to do that. So, the industry minimally should pay him to lobby or, something, but Jed should be paid on behalf of us to really intermediate on behalf of medical marijuana because he's just so deep. He's a political consultant. He's done a lot of stuff. Anyway, I don't want to, not going to be the Jed show here. But he's leading ORCA. ORCA as a group, a year and a half ago, kind of started socializing, 818 and 819. A lot of you guys know that story, but 818 was a reform of 788. And again, I'm involved there and I wrote 788. So, we have kept the principles and kind of foundations of 788 in 818. But, we missed some stuff in 788. And again, a lot of people have a lot of words in that. Again, it lived on my computer. So a lot of people lay claim to some things that potentially they shouldn't. But again, a lot of people have words in SQ 788. But SQ 788 was written in 2015, okay? So 2015, that's a long time ago. So there was some need for, reform. And again, the other thing that we did with 788 is we just ran over everybody. I mean, I had doubts whether we'd make it or not, but not until really the very end, election night kind of, fears. But I'm a mathematician. I mean, I trust my demographics, I trust my statistics, and I knew that we had the numbers here as long as we didn't get too beat up about just what we had about 788 in particular. So, that didn't happen. We got 57% of vote and all that. So let me tell you the story. I think it's important to tell you the story of medical marijuana here in Oklahoma. But I did want to kind of give you that background on ORCA because ORCA is who I support, and I talk to ORCA all the time. So that is a good organization. We've had some attempts to, let's say, hijack marijuana, use it as a political issue to try to manipulate you, really, in November. To try to, get a kind of the liberal vote out, if you will, and try to impact our November governor's election. So that was 820. And I'm just calling it out, guys. This is the way that I see it. Again, I could be wrong, but I can tell you the race to get 820 done over the top of us and in spite of us with, no really caring about what we'd done or, anything like that. Really, the people who've been doing this since 2014. We were just overrun and, told that us rubes here in Oklahoma didn't know what we were doing by Berkeley. So, yeah, that happened. But, so that wasn't good. And again, those people don't care about our marijuana program. They're just trying to get something on the ballot. They're throwing a rec carrot out there in front of you, an adult use carrot, to get something on the ballot to try to influence you. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't think Orca likes that. So again, it might not be outwardly as blatantly honest as I am, but there you go. So, but I want to tell you the story about medical marijuana because it relates back to this same group of people, honestly. So I want to kind of talk about it a little bit. And I'm going to talk about this from my perspective. So I'm just going to give you my personal story. Again, this is, let's say, my testimonial on Oklahoma medical marijuana. Cynthia would have probably a simpler one because she lived it right beside me. Others might have a little different perspective because, again, they just view it from a different perspective. But I'll tell you mine, okay? So 2014, Cindy and I, we had, let's say, tried medical marijuana for our pain. I was a teetotaler. I was had not drank any alcohol since I was 20, had not, smoked any marijuana, done any drugs, nothing, before I went and tried marijuana for my back pain. And I knew that opiates, were potentially in my future or something like that. And I didn't want to take those. I knew what they did to me in my, teens, and I didn't want to live that dream again. So that just scared the heck out of me. But I was open to marijuana. It took a while to become open to marijuana. I was a complete no on marijuana up until this experience, up until 2013. But I tried it, and it worked so well for my pain, and it worked so well for Cindy's neck pain that, we knew there was something to it. And that just started me, man, did that start me on a journey. An educational journey for myself, a research journey. I dove in, or really started diving in 2012, but dove in and, learned everything I could, literally made myself into a world expert on the endocannabinoid system, but I'm completely self-taught. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. So what happened? 2013, so Norma Sapp. So Norma is the grandmother of all cannabis in Oklahoma and should always have that title. No one can ever take away Norma Sapp's title because Norma had done a lot. Norma had been a part of Normal before this, but Norma ran a poll. Somehow somebody gave her some money, and so she ran a Sooner poll. So Bill Shapper probably gave her a deal. But she ran a Sooner poll in 2013. I think it was in December. But it asked Oklahoma, if medical marijuana was on the ballot, how many of you guys would vote for it? And it was high. It was higher than 57%, if I recall, but it was, 60% or something. And so it was like, whoa, that's interesting. And then right after that, Connie Johnson, when she was still a state senator in 2014, very early, held a rally at the Capitol. And she got like 2,000 people out there, to talk about marijuana. That's bigger than any rally we ever had as Oklahomans for Health. So that was a good sized rally. So that told me something too, that people are active about this. People, want this, and certainly this works. And, why is there such resistance to this? And, let's start talking about this. So in March of 2014, Cindy and I and 3 other people, so it was nonprofit several different nonprofit organizations, let's say, kind of all came together in a room and talked about trying to do this in 2014. So trying to actually petition the state of Oklahoma in 2014. And 3 of us, so 3 out of the 5, Cindy and I and one other gent, decided that would be a good thing to do. And so we set out to do it. One of the early problems we had was, what do we want? I mean, what do we put in the law? Do we want to duplicate California's law? Do we want to, and that's really what we did right off because we couldn't find anybody to help us write it. There was no attorneys that write, Oklahoma constitutional law. It's just that you could go call up, you might have to go to Crow or, one of the bigger law firms and probably find one. But, we had difficulty finding somebody who would write language. So we stole a lot of language from California's law, but we amended it some. And that's what we ran in 2014 as a petition. That petition effort was more successful. We got more signatures in that petition effort than we did in our 2016 effort that, actually made the ballot. The difference was we were trying to do it as a constitutional. So we were actually, thank God we didn't make it. Golly, if we would have written that POS in our Constitution, that would have been bad. And again, I wrote that one too. That one was not that one, and I didn't write all of the. Again, you write down ideas, you start trading ideas. Those ideas went to Normal, they went to everywhere, right? So all kinds of organizations, people had thoughts. We changed, amended it. So it's a group effort, but it definitely lived on my computer. So, but anyway, the three of us, so we decide, yeah, let's go do this. So we let's say we had some generous donors. Those generous donors were able to support most of that first effort. And we set about petitioning the state. So you might remember Oklahomans for Health in 2014, everything that we did. We were all over Tulsa. All over the Tulsa area. We were somewhat in Oklahoma City, but we really didn't have the effort that we needed in Oklahoma City. That's part of why we fell short. And then we were for some reason, the southern part of Oklahoma was very active too. So we got a lot of signatures out of, Ardmore, Ada area and all that, which was really cool. So that was, unsuccessful, but was successful. I got a call shortly after that effort from a representative who was working on something called Katie's Law, and we had several meetings to, discuss, what he was doing and kind of would we support it and all that, which we absolutely did. So, that 2014 effort kind of opened the door for that early CBD law that happened here in Oklahoma. Which was a good thing and, helped some folks. We turned around and decided to petition again in 2016. And organizationally, we were pretty strong, through this time. Definitely we're opposite ends of the political spectrum, let's say, when you look at Republican, Democrat. So the three of us, so Cynthia and I were conservative, and then the third member was, kind of as liberal as you could possibly get, let's say. Occupy and socialist Democrats and all that kind of stuff. But, we managed to keep the wheels on the bus and we all got along pretty well. We were going to petition again in 2015. We pulled back on that because we really didn't have the money or the organization in 2015 to go again. That opened the door to another group, which decided that, they wanted to be the it group called Green the Vote. So Green the Vote showed up and they petitioned during that time. And, I won't tell you how many signatures they got because it was kind of embarrassing. But they didn't do very well, in their petitioning effort. So, but we turned around and nothing, I'm not trying to, disparage anyone. It's just, that's what happened. A lot of people got activated. A lot of people, good people were involved in that effort. But it just, it didn't really kind of have the horsepower, I guess, that Oklahomans for Health had. So when we turned around in 2016 and decided to re-petition, we rebuilt our board. So we had Joe Dorman, join our board. He was just coming off of, he was the Democratic candidate for governor when Mary Fallin got elected to her second term. So he was somewhat well known, and we were excited to have him. He was excited to be there, and so that was a good thing. Immediately, the third kind of main founding member of our board, and he got at odds. And I literally spent most of our 2016 effort managing that relationship. I was probably on the phone weekly, if not daily, keeping those two people from killing each other. So, or having at each other, let's say. So that's a little extreme. But anyway, so we had the 2016 effort. 2016 effort was not going well because we kind of had the Green the Vote effort that everybody thought they'd sign the petition. Oh, yeah, I signed it. When did you sign it? 2014. Or our effort, too. 2015. Yeah, no, you need to sign it again. You need to sign it again. And so we kind of struggled. We did, a third member of the, sort of founding members had the best idea in the world, to go build this kind of tent city out in the middle of Oklahoma City. So he went and did that. And that made the difference, I would say. So we would not have been successful without, that 24/7 round the clock effort. And a lot of people, believe me, contributed to this. We were down to the wire in 2016, we were counting and verifying signatures, and so that was good, which kind of gave everybody an indication of where we were. But we knew we were close, and the board met, I think, maybe 2 or 3 days before the signature turn in, and we had come to the conclusion that we were probably going to be 1,000, if not hundreds of signatures short. Okay, so that's really where we thought that we would come in. And we were stunned to find out that we were 1,600 signatures over. And that's not much, okay? So that is, I think that, I don't know how many signatures they threw out of the automated effort of 820. That would be interesting. But I think it was, somewhere probably around 30%. So you can just assume that 30% of your signatures are, probably bad notary or something. And again, our margin for error there was, 1%. No, it was a little bit, it was 3%. Okay, so 3%. So again, a factor of 10, really below where we should have been. But we weren't challenged for whatever reason. I mean, we were stunned that we made it. We weren't challenged. We thought we'd make the 2016 ballot. We were challenged, by Attorney General Scott Pruitt, who it hurt him a lot, I know, to write that brief because he had to write a Federalist brief, and he was a super strong states' rights guy. So in order to argue, against our ballot title, he had to go Federalist, and I know that hurt him. So it was interesting just to observe. But anyway, we had to fight that. So Oklahomans for Health had to fight that with the Oklahoma State Supreme Court. We were joined in that effort nicely by the ACLU of Oklahoma, who turns out to be not a good guy in this story, but they were a good guy this time, so they did help, which was great. So, but ACLU joined in, so we won that court case. Our ballot title was maintained, and that cleared the way for the 2018 ballot. So we knew, as Oklahomans for Health, because we were the proponent of SQ 788, we knew that we would be on the 2018 ballot sometime. So we assumed we would be on the primary ballot just because we knew the governor wanted to do everything that she could to wreck our issue, and she felt like only the old people got out and voted in, May or whenever, June, right? So we knew that we would probably be on the primary ballot. But anyway, in 2017, in late 2017, we started kind of, and organizing for a campaign is a little different than organizing for a state question. So we started beginning to organize for the campaign. Now, I would say the tension, between some of our board members, especially the diametrically opposed ones, continued to build over this time, but we were managing it. But we had an interesting call. So I get a call, and this was right around the Las Vegas shooting, let's just say, so that Harvest massacre that happened in Las Vegas. It was right around that time. And I got a call from Ryan Kiesel. And Ryan had headed the ACLU of Oklahoma, was head of the ACLU of Oklahoma at that time. And again, Ryan had helped us with our court case and had a good relationship with Ryan. And, Ryan's an okay guy. He's just, we see things differently here, let's say. But Ryan calls and he says, hey, I've got this friend of mine named Bud Scott. And Bud wants to drive up, meet with you, and talk about, getting a donation for Oklahomans for Health, helping you guys, with the campaign and all that. So I'm like, okay, cool. So Bud and Ryan drive up. We have a great meeting. We decide, we talk about a donation amount, which is quite large. They have some asks, which are, acceptable. So we kind of, we'll say a deal is reached, if you will. Well, that was Friday before the Las Vegas shooting. And so at this time, I don't view myself as any kind of a public, figure, or, I don't think anybody really cares about anything I have to say. So I have an open Twitter account. And so, I'm seeing this stuff kind of go down, and I heard multiple gunshots that sounded like different caliber rifles, that sounded like they were coming from different places. And so I'm just saying this on Twitter. Well, Monday morning, so this was on Sunday, this happened on Sunday. Well, Monday morning, I get a call from Ryan Kiesel. He says, hey, I've got Bud Scott on the line. He says, yeah, everything that we talked to you about last Friday, it's off. And you need to shut up. You need to stop saying what you're saying on Twitter right now. Now, he was the head of the ACLU of Oklahoma. He was the champion of my First Amendment rights. Okay? So I shut up. Because again, that's kind of weird, kind of scary. And not too long after that, we have our board member that's diametrically opposed decide to try to steal the board of Oklahoma's for Health, steal our Facebook, and just basically cut Cindy and I out of the whole thing. And this is, fall of 2017. So we ended up getting our Facebook back, Oklahoma's for Health. So Oklahoma's for Health at that time, I don't know, we had 30,000, followers. We had all this activity and stuff that we built. We'd done a lot of our campaigning, on Facebook. So that all got taken away. We ended up getting, and, that group still exists. You can go find that, that was taken from Oklahoma's for Health. All those followers were earned by Oklahoma. I'm sure they've earned some of them by now, but we earned most of them. We never got our followers back. We got our name back, but we never got our followers back. So by 2018, we started looking at raising money and campaigning for this issue. Oklahoma's for Health had its teeth pulled. If we said, yeah, we're the proponent of the law, we're the ones that started all this. We've been doing it since 2014. We've been working hard at doing it, working hard for you. People would go to Facebook and go, yeah, you have 5,000 followers and this other group has 55,000. They're saying the same thing you're saying. It's like, are they? They're the proponent of the law? But, you get over stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, we kept our organization, we kept our board. Oklahoma's for Health existed. Oklahoma's for Health, was a proponent of the law. So yeah, we kept all that. But someone tried to steal that from us. Okay. So there you go. Now, and you have two of those names. The diametrically opposed one, you guys know who that is. But anyway, the other I've just named. So now, let's fast forward to, the actual campaign. It sure seemed like there was a large attempt to marginalize our organization called Oklahoma's for Health by other organizations. It doesn't really matter. It occurred to me sometime or along the line is, yeah, those guys could say all the shitty things they want about me or about our organization or about whatever. It doesn't really matter because they're just going to help me get this law passed. And so that was fine. As long as we're all rowing the boat in the same direction, you can scream whatever you want in my ears. Just keep rowing, keep rowing, keep rowing. And they did, which was great. And so we passed our law. We had some battles, I would say, but, right after we passed the law, and again, we passed the law. We had to do some things to keep the legislature from calling a special session right off, because they would have changed our dates. They would have changed a bunch of stuff because the governor, wanted them to. So we had to do some things to do that. So, we staved that off, and then the regulatory went to Department of Health. We kind of got screwed over there. We had to sue them or, threaten to sue them. The Attorney General got involved. And so we had finally, and again, it wasn't us. It wasn't the activists. The activists had suggested a 60-page regulatory, activists in commercial industry at the time, to the Oklahoma State Department of Health that we all agreed on. And they decided on a 20-pager. So we all know the truth of that. So, they kind of rolled us out the program. They rolled it out to fail. They rolled it out to where it would get out of control. They rolled it out where John Q would, be talking to his state representative and saying, stop this now. It's horrible. They rolled it out so that the black market would thrive. They rolled it out so California would come here. They rolled it out so China would come here. Or at least they opened the door to that, whether they did that willfully and knowingly or not. But, that's the regulatory that health gave us. But anyway, the legislature kind of said, we need to step in. And so they called I think it was 13-week, special. It wasn't a special session. It was a bicameral kind of, special meetings, right? Second time in Oklahoma history it's ever been done. But anyway, one of the things that happened during that meeting is, you had all these different groups. Again, we're the proponent of the law. We're the ones that petitioned the state twice. We should be kind of the only group at the table, but there was other groups at the table because, other groups had bubbled up during the campaign, like New Health, right? And so you had Bud, and Jed at the table. And then you had others, you had kind of Green the Vote, somehow had showed up because they were running a petition and everybody thought that they were going to get wrecked and they lied about the signatures and all that mess that you'll remember. But you also had Green the Vote, at the table too. So you have the legislature kind of dealing with these different parties. But, again, in my mind, we're the, legitimate, professional party that should be at the table, talking to the legislature. I know Bud wouldn't feel that way. But anyway, so the legislature, it's very clear to the legislature that, gosh, if you guys just ever sat down and really hammered out, all your issues between you, we're going to do what you want. I mean, you just got 50% of the vote, basically. So we're going to, kind of build you the regulatory under this law that you want and need. So we're like, okay. So we did that, and quickly found out that, again, I've talked a lot about Jed, but got to know Jed a lot during this process and just got to know how ethical, he is and straight shooter, and then also how connected he is. And, he's just a good guy to know, let's say. And like the way that he thinks. He's a smart guy, all that. So, but Jed kind of emerges, as, help pull us all together. I'm certainly willing to do that, or our group's willing to do that, and Green the Vote's, willing to do that. So we all kind of come together and we put forth, what became 2612. So Governor Stitt became governor. First thing he signed is, concealed carry. Second thing he signed was 2612, which was the regulatory under the marijuana program. And we're grateful to him for doing that. But anyway, so that got signed. Okay, so now let's kind of fast forward to current time. So what's been going on since then? I know all you guys in commercial industry are so involved, I'm sorry, I'm poking fun. A lot of us, this business is new. So a lot of us are in this business as first-time business owners. We don't know we need lobbying. We don't know we need protection for the law. We don't know that, gosh, the legislature could do things and jack with us. So we certainly know that now, don't we? Or we're certainly beginning to feel that. So if you don't know that by now with metric and with now, license caps and all those type things, pay attention. And those basically everything that's happened to our program is a result of bad lobbying, to this point. I mean, there's been some good things that have been put in there. And certainly the OMMA has had some good asks, that need to be in there. But the goofy stuff has just been bad, silly lobbying. And a lot of the stuff that we've had to fight really hard to kill has just been bad, stupid lobbying. And, who does bad, stupid lobbying? Attorneys. And, I've named one of the names. And again, there's another name that you guys know. And that's just, to be able to be part of the law, is because you've got your name on it, good for you. But you don't need to be monkeying with a plan that's bigger than, it's a plan to basically destroy pharma. And not that, anyone's setting out to do that, but I think that now, our stake that we've driven in the ground is very important here in Oklahoma. It's spiritually important. Yeah, that. Okay? So mess with it at your own peril. I'll just say that. I mean, I've seen the lightning strike. Wow. And you really don't want that to happen to you. So, and that has happened to some of these people, interestingly. But anyway, fast forward to right now. So, I talked about it a little bit the first. So 820, 888, R818, and 819. So 820 has got its signatures. It's made the ballot. Do you know, you guys don't know this, but again, the same guy who, wouldn't defend my First Amendment rights and told me to shut up is the guy that's really behind 820, Ryan Kiesel. Do you know Ryan is the lobbyist for Metric? So you guys just need to be aware of this stuff, right? So, and again, I'm not, I like Ryan. I do. I'd call him on the phone, right? He'll probably call me after this. What the hell are you doing talking about me on Facebook? Not being mean to you, Ryan. I'm just calling things out. I'm just telling truth, okay? So not trying to be mean to anybody. Ryan helped us a lot. He won us the Supreme Court case, really, to help 788 make the ballot. So I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you that there's, forces at play here. Somebody made a phone call to him and said, make Chip Paul shut up on Twitter. I don't know if that was the same people that are behind 820, but now wouldn't that be interesting, right? So anyway, there you go. So we've named some names, we've told some truth, but we've also talked about, and really the importance of this is medical marijuana. We have to defend this castle. And my gosh, we've built a pretty good castle here in Oklahoma. People like Jed Green keep throwing bricks and mortar on it. People like the Hawkings out in western Oklahoma. People like, a lot of dispensary owners here in Tulsa, Harvest Health here in Tulsa, 420 Utica here in Tulsa. So I don't want to, try to name everybody. I'll leave somebody out. But those folks are the people who are trying to do it right. They're trying to build the bricks and mortar in our castle here in medical marijuana so we don't have it torn down. And we have people that want to tear it down. You don't think 820 will do more harm than good? We'll get wrecked. But, at what cost, right? So, anyway, the good news there, though, is, I'll tell you a secret. 820 won't make the November ballot. Why won't it make the November ballot? Because there's a process. There's a process involved with state. Why didn't we make the 2016 ballot? Because there's a process. We actually, if you look at when we went out for signatures, 788 in 2016 went out for signatures before 820, and we still didn't make the 2016 ballot. So this was a foregone conclusion that these guys were not going to make the ballot. So what's going to happen to 820 after November? Because it's going to be on the ballot sometime. Is it still going to have backing and sponsorship of the people that spent $2.5 million to get it where it is? I don't know. We'll see. Sorry, this got a little weird, got a little political. Sorry about that. But I think that, you guys need to know, and again, that's what I'm here to do. That's what Chip Talks is it is telling truth. And I'm going to call it like I see it, and I'm going to call it like I've lived it, and I'm going to call it like I've experienced it. And that's what I'm doing. So, love you guys. God is good. God is great. Hug your wife. Hug your neighbor. Things are kind of stressful right now. I don't know if that's that way for everybody, but it just feels kind of stressful. So I love you guys. I'm feeling the love back from you. Let's keep her going. If you have ideas for Chip Talks, hit me up. But, we're going to be talking a lot about light coming up. It's going to be fun.